Hello and welcome back to another episode of Supercoach Insider. My name is Ben, and today we're bringing you a very established podcaster, much better than Chris Swizz and myself, Damo from Jock Reynolds. How are you today?
It's great to be here, guys. Ready to chat defenders for the 2023 season. Round one, not too far around the corner. I'm getting very excited.
Yeah, it's very close. We are going through our top 10 defenders in order, which is going to be a really tough ask outside of that top sort of 5 to 6 bracket. But I guess after the last episode, I should probably introduce, hey, Chris and Swizz, how are you today, guys?
I'm good. Damo, just quickly, mate, how many times have you deleted and redone your team just in the last week? Just to
Believe it or not, I didn't delete it too much after the practice games were finished. It was while they were going on that I kept making the changes. I've been pretty settled since.
Nice. That's pretty good. I'm impressed. I reckon I was actually saying earlier today, I wish that the preseason games the games started this week, because this weekend has just been, in like the last few days, has been absolute on overdrive to the point where it's out of control for me. And I'm just like, I felt settled like 4 or 5 days ago. It was like, yep, I'm okay. This is going to be my team. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. And now I'm overthinking in overdrive, and it's gone crazy. So hopefully by the end of this podcast, I'll have a little bit more idea.
I keep seeing people's teams pop up on Twitter, and I'm like, oh, maybe I could do that. No, I'm happy with my team. I'm happy with my team.
I need $70,000 to $100,000 more. I think I keep kind of coming back to my team, and then I'm like, oh, I reckon I've reset more than anyone. But unlike Chris, I didn't get to watch much of the preseason games, so I'm less tainted from all of the recency bias. But now I'm like, oh, should I believe this person or should I believe this person? They sound pretty interesting as far as structure. So now I'm trying to work out whether it's actually a good thing or a bad thing getting sucked in. Swizz, what about yourself?
Oh, you guys know how I'm traveling in that, but I'm here to podcast, so that's going to take my mind off things. Unfortunately, another death in the family, but life goes on. So here I am to talk defenders. So that'll make me happy, and I'm happy to be here with you boys. So looking forward to it.
We love you, mate.
And feel free, just like the center bounce, feel free to throw out some technical issue puns to Chris today, who the other day was Swizz got absolutely roasted. So Chris, I'm sure will get his butt hurt at some point tonight.
Classic.
Hopefully in this room. All right, so let's get into defenders. We'll go straight into the 10. Damo, you're always going to kick us off, and then I'll let these couple of plebs fight out the back end of it. Starting off with number 10 on your list. Who's the 10th highest average defender?
Sitting at number 10 for me, if we're not including DPP players, is Adam Sard. I've got him at number 10. I think he's probably going to maintain the average that he produced last year, but might drop a little bit with the absence of a few players down back with injuries and new players coming through like Sincotta and Cowan and all that. But yeah, I've got him at number 10. I think he's a good starting selection who should get within a couple of points of his average last year, but there's every chance he'll have a down game every now and then with these new guys coming through.
I have him a little bit higher, but part of the reasoning is with the absence of Zach Williams. So I think there was a 12 game average where without Zach Williams, he averaged over 110. So obviously he's not there this year. Now, those, I love, the with or without players, you can say that, but someone comes in to play that role. So it's not like that role is not there. So I'm not sure how much to throw at that. So as a stat is like, can I leverage him to maybe average 110? Probably not. I've actually put him at my 5th highest. I think there's a little bit of a bump, but not as high as say 110. I'm thinking like 106, 107 is probably where I think of him. So I do have him a little bit higher, but yeah, 5 is where I have him sat at the moment.
It's like what everyone's doing with the Western Bulldogs as well. They're kind of like, oh, Dunkley's out. So everyone's like, with or without you. With or without you. Swizz, where do you have Sard?
Until because we made the decisions not to include potential dual position players. So I had him originally 11th, but he's been bumped up to 9th. I think he's probably going to maintain roughly around what he had last year.
Wow, I never knew you rated Lockie Ash so highly, Swizz.
Well.
Or
Wow.
Gorn's getting defender status. I'm not too sure. I've actually got him at
Yeah.
8th. Similar reasoning to Chris, and more for, I think, a little bit of a bump, and that should hold him in good stead. But you could either take him or leave him. In my opinion, I think it's someone I don't believe will hurt you per se, but I think he'll chip away and get what he needs done. All right, so that's that one. Then Chris, who have you got at number 10?
I've got this is probably a bias pick. I'll be honest with you guys. I've got Nick Dacos coming in the 10th spot there. I think gets a little bit of a bump. Probably, I think he averages like say a 102, so slightly over 100. I don't think he gets to the extreme, 110 plus that he obviously has been able to show that he's been able to produce. But we saw obviously on the weekend he's going to get tagged, and he's too dangerous to just let run free with the football. How many times does that happen? How many teams tag? Tagging seems to be in vogue. What's his role? Is he going to be playing, more midfield? Does that increase or decrease his scoring? I actually think he scores a little bit better behind the footy because he's just able to do whatever he wants without as little attention as possible. So, so Dacos for me at 10. I don't know if you guys might not even have him in that top 10. Where do you guys sit after the practice match and the preseason and all the hoo-ha and everything like that?
Oh, there you go, Damo.
The tag worries me, but there's other players in that Collingwood midfield to tag. Like if Jordan De Goey's in the midfield, he's going to get centre clearances for fun. You have Tom Mitchell in there who you might tag, but does his disposal really hurt you? He'll rack them up, and teams won't really want that. And then you've got players like Taylor Adams and even Scott Pendlebury going through there every so often. So the tag does worry me. I actually have him at number 9, so I've got him higher than Adam Sard, but the tag does worry me. I think he'll have some really strong games, and then he'll also have games where he has those annoying 70s to 80s scores because he's had a bit of attention in the first few periods of the game.
Yeah,
I mean, he already had that 164, right? Like, so you know the ceiling's there regardless. It's just, can his floor, raise enough even when he does get tagged to even out those games and get a decent average out of him? And I suppose that's the biggest question, right? That's what everyone's asking.
Yeah, I agree. I had him just above Sard too. I've got him at 8.
I have Dacos at 10th as well, Chris. More based on the tag factor, but then that ceiling does help balance out, and he'll probably get better as far as that exposure to being tagged in bits and pieces. So I think that kind of balances out that high ceiling. He'll get a 160 maybe again, but then he'll have a game of like a 70 or something where he'll get tagged. And even if he gets tagged, I still think he'll work through it better to still kind of get those sort of 70 scores or whatever. I don't think it's going to be dire like a shutdown 50 or anything. I think
he's
he'll
the
get
sort
better.
of guy that he could jump on a 50-point quarter, like legitimately. Like if they knock the tag off a 3/4 time, Dacos can just go nuts in the last quarter. So, it's.
I love how you said Collingwood bias, and you've got him the lowest of the lot of us.
Well, I thought that you guys would have him less than that because I've got him averaging like 102-ish. So,
mate, he's been in my side nearly the entire preseason. But I said if I watch him get tagged once and he doesn't do that well, he's out. That's the only reason I put him out. But he's still in the he could end up in my side at some point throughout the year.
Fair enough.
Interesting. Swizz, who have you got at 10?
I can't split them, and I've got Eagles defender. So I've got it's either Hearn or McGovern. And I think Hearn just continues to do what he does even at 34, 35, 40 years old, whatever he is. And if it's not him, it's McGovern at that, because I just think they're going to see so much ball. I didn't rate West Coast last year, and I don't rate them this year. And I just think they're just going to be right for their biggest problem is they can't score, and they've lost one of the best full forwards of all time. And now they're relying on Oscar Allen to do it all with Darling out. So I think the ball just gets rebounded out of their forward line, and the transition is going to be just ongoing. The midfield's not that great as it is. It's either going to be young guys or these older guys coming up from injury. And it's just the only thing that's going to save them is Hearn, McGovern, Barras intercept marks, and that even maybe Cole to a certain point.
Barras is actually in a race for round 1, isn't he?
And that's the problem too. So if he's not there, I think there's games where McGovern is just going to go absolutely huge. He's never really done the 100 before, but that's not saying he can't do it. But then he's always been West Coast have always been a really good team. They've always been up around the top and stuff. So these Eagles defenders, I think they're just going to see so much of it. but I can't split Hearn and McGovern. I think it's going to be one of them. I just don't know which one.
I don't think either of them get a sniff in the 10 at all.
Hearn's been in the top 10 forever, mate.
Yeah, wonderful. And then he's going to fall over and literally go for like an 88 average.
He falls over. Then has to retire. We're talking Witherden then.
No, we're not.
I'm saying Witherden and Duggan are going to be the ones that actually lift them forward, and Old Man Rivers is going to cry himself night night.
Damo, what do you think about your fellow West Coast brethren?
I think.
Where's the censor button?
I think a fit Yo, the addition of Ruben Ginbey will reduce the reliance on Shannon Hearn quite as much as it was last year. So I think Jeremy McGovern, out of those two, if we're just sort of, if it's out of those two, will probably do better than Hearn. And he actually had some really good games last year before he went down with his injury. So he's probably a chance more than Hearn is. I've got next to Hearn in my notes, unlikely to retain. So I think McGovern, if it's out of Hearn and McGovern, probably is the closest one to getting into the top 10. But I think Witherden or Duggan or even Yo could possibly get into the top 10 before those guys do.
That's why that's why I was kind of cheating with this, because I just put 10 Eagles midfield, Eagles defender, because I just don't know which one. I just couldn't split them. I know it's going to be one of it. We'll come into the year and there'll be one Eagles defender at 10.
We don't need you to repeat your statements, okay? We've gone in a circle. We're not going back to the start. This ain't wet and wild. I think by you mean as in unable to maintain, I think you're talking about his pension, Damo, and I completely do agree. Can we move on now? Because we've just done 10, so otherwise this is going to be a 100-minute episode on 10.
I like it.
9.
By the way, I do think that Yo, we did touch on Yo. I actually just have him just outside that, so I do think that Yo pushes 100 as an average. I'm not sure how much over that he can go, but I think he hits around about 100. Around about. Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
But number 9.
My number 9 is Nick Dacos, and we've spoken enough about him. I don't think we need to continue on with that.
Swizz, number 9.
Sada, I've already said it.
Chris?
Hold on, guys. I've got my number 9 here. This is going to be controversial. I think Jack Sinclair drops to around about 104, 105. And he's my number 9. So reasoning, because he was, I think, number 1 last year, maybe number 2.
He was number 1. This isn't Austin Powers number 2, yes?
No, so what we saw so far, on the evidence that we've had so far, Wangani Malera seems to be taking at least 50% of those kickouts from now moving forward. And they seem to be very confident in using him out of defense as opposed to just Jack Sinclair. And last year there was one rule: get the ball in Jack Sinclair's hands and then try and push forward from defense. That has changed. So how much that impacts Sinclair, I think it'll be 5 to 10 points per game, and that will bring him down in quite substantially. So I think that of those big top 6 guys, he's by far the worst, and you could see him potentially drop down to that sort of just above 100 average, just in my opinion. Open to the floor, guys.
I'll back you here, Chris. I've got him at 7.
Yes.
And nearly thought about putting him down at 8 too, but I couldn't pump up Dacos that much.
I've got him at 6.
I agree on all the things. I think they're actually playing faster ball move. It was like Essendon and St Kilda had swapped coaches watching that practice game. Essendon's gone slow ball movement through the halfback. St Kilda are now quicker transition through that. And then, Wangani Malera taking those kickouts. I think that's definitely a deduction in his baseline stats.
I've got him at 6, and similar reasoning, and except the difference is every year Chris has like the most inflated average, although for once you were probably right, because it was like 110, 110, 110, 19.
I did. I got last year. Hang on. You're welcome.
Well, apart from you and I having Witherden so highly rated, which did not work out.
He was going like 125 over the first 5. Shut up.
And Whitfield, sorry, obviously Witherden and Whitfield. Hey, that's fine. And funnily enough, because that's who my number 9 is actually Witherden is my number 9.
Oh,
and
no.
Witherden, so as in I think Old Man Hearn's going to get injured, and I think a lot of it now has to get passed down to either Duggan, Witherden, Yo, and I don't think those other boys are going to be doing it. So he has had a notorious knack for getting a high average with kicks and the rest of it. Averaged 100. So again, I don't know about his games played or the rest of it, but after the disappointment of last year, this guy was running 12 kilometers like on Saturday mornings with his off-season program, training with the other boys, and he's really fit, talking about, the journey on how everyone's not linear and blah, 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 blah. And I'm buying into it, Chris. Now, you're a little bit butthurt, but if there is anyone that is actually, outside of that scope to sort of with a push and have a high average, Witherden's the kind of guy that could snake it. Now, I'm not going to start him.
Just wondering, did he also go to under 12s training to learn how to tackle or apply pressure or do anything that makes you an actual AFL footballer, or did he just run around and do what he does best, which is run away from the football? Run away. Oh, I'm over here. I'm on my own. Oh, he's like Lockie Hunter before Lockie Hunter became a good footballer. That's what he is.
Run away. Home run, Jack. Home run. Oh, run home, Jack.
By the way, sorry, Damo, but where do you have Jack Sinclair, buddy? Have you got... I'm assuming a little bit higher than what we had him.
He's not in my 10.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
So I have him the highest in number 6.
Oh, that's just sexy.
I have him the highest.
There's a reason we got you on, mate. We got you on for a good
Ross
reason.
Lyon's game plan gives me PTSD. And I know he said that he's changed his ways. He's going to play a more attacking brand. But I can also see Jack Sinclair being that guy that he just forgets about.
Yep.
Doesn't build into his plan at all.
Just like I forgot about him in my team all last year. Exactly. I respect that.
Yeah. He's like,
I
changed.
seriously, when I first did the rankings of that, I've gone through it because we had the dual position. I feel like I'm missing one of the big 5 from last year. And I was like, oh yeah, Sinclair's not there. Hang on, let me rethink of this. And I was like, there's no way I can leave him out of the 10. And then, when we reshifted those dual positions, obviously he bumped up 2 positions. So, but I was originally going to have him at 9. I agree.
Damo,
I love that. Damo. I love
absolutely
this.
Made my night. This is so good.
See, Ross Lyon has learned.
Watch him. Ben's like, he's the number 1 player.
Ben's starting him because he doesn't have recency bias, remember?
I told you if you two would shut the fuck up for a second to actually listen to other people. I said number 6 is where I had him, and I said for the same reasons that you do, I just didn't think he was going to be dropping. That 105 I thought would still put him around that 6 mark, which is pretty much where we're at. Now, Ross Lyon has learned a few things. He's gone, hey, I'm going to go snakes and oranges, and I'm going to stay away from pretzels because I hear pretzels are a bad thing for snacks. Damo.
Ask Brendan Goddard. He loves a good pretzel.
Number 8.
Oh,
my number 8 is Angus Brayshaw.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see
it. I can see it.
If he gets the midfield time, gets the midfield rotations, I can see him averaging 105 to 107.
I mean, the thing is, realistically, he's never getting a tag. And that's what happens when he goes into that midfield. It's either track or Oliver gets the tag. He runs around, does whatever he wants, racks up 40 disposals, and people go, oh, do we have to lock down this guy? And then by the time that they realize, well, they can't do that because as soon as you go off track or Oliver, then bang, then the game's over. So
they're like, oh, maybe it won't hurt so bad. Let's just change tactic. And they're like, it hurts so bad. You just can't do it. You just can't do it.
You know who's going to beat Melbourne this year? Melbourne. By changing up their stupid rotations, playing Oliver off halfback and playing Tracker as a full-time forward pocket where he averaged 1.2 goals a game.
No, it's a Faguzi. It's not real. Now, Brayshaw it is help that Salem looks like he'll be back fairly early now. And because that was the part of the original plan. They're saying, oh, well, hey, Salem's out. So we have, Brayshaw can play in defense and this, that, and the other. And I was like, that kills him. Because I was kind of big on him for a cheaper price to go that 105 bracket. Now it might be more in the realm of things, except we won't actually see it before Salem's back. So round 1, round 2, who knows when he's back. Swizz, number 9, have you?
Well,
we're up to 8.
We're up to 8 anyway. But
that's right. Witherden.
But to answer your Brayshaw first, to do where I don't have Brayshaw ranked.
I have him just outside, but like averaging 100.
Yeah.
Only because I don't know. If he's midfield, then that is way higher. I think he goes 105 to 110 quite comfortably. And then I've got to change things around. We just don't know yet is probably the only answer that I would say. But yeah.
Yeah, I had him like 98, 99. So I'm about where you are there, Chris. And I've got him like that 11th, 12th spot.
So, Damo, you've got him averaging that 105 sort of mark, right?
Yeah, 105 to 107.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, look, I reckon he could piss that in with the right roll. Like he could go higher than that, to be honest.
For sure.
But yeah, obviously we don't know yet. But I like it. I like it a lot.
It was like those final 4 rounds in the finals when he had that sort of, was it 40 to 60 or 40 to 50%? I think CBAs he did really well, averaged, I think 104 or so.
Yeah, so 8 I had Dacos, 7 was Sinclair, so you don't have to come to me.
Yeah, that's fine.
I've got my 8 if you guys want to just...
Yeah, okay. I had Dale, so he started at 8, so yep, Chris?
Dan Houston I've got at 8. So I think he actually gets a little bit of a bump. He's out. I think he... Look...
Did you say Dan Houston?
Yeah, he did.
I did.
That's why I nearly walked out.
Okay. I just had to double check there.
So again, so this is where I think he goes about 105-ish, which is only a little bit up on his average from last year anyway. But I think for Port to be better, they need to control the ball more out of the halfback. They've got potency everywhere, but their defense has really lacked because they haven't had stability behind the ball with heaps of injuries. And I think that if they could get a back 6 together with permanent roles, with Dan Houston being a distributor off halfback, I think that he goes very, very well. And I think that does happen this year. And I think Port challenge for top 4. So,
and they're going to get stability out of their backline through Dan Houston.
yes, they are.
Oh, hey. Chris is on dial-up. It's not his fault, boys.
Oh, come on.
Okay.
Hey, Damo's actually in Perth. I didn't even know how he was able to join up with the internet over there. So.
Yeah, so he'll
I
hear
just
this
reached
joke.
my hand into the wardrobe, with a line in the Witcher, and I connected up the cable, and I was fine.
That's it. Straight through the line.
And the best part about this joke is Damo can laugh at this 2 hours later as well.
Yes, that's true.
So here in Melbourne, where we're in 2035, Dan Houston isn't seeing the ball because that Port Adelaide midfield's not letting it get past the centre square. Rosie, Butters, Wines, Horn Francis, mate, they're going to smoke teams. Houston's not going to see the ball this year, mate.
Horn Francis averaging 6 frees against a game, 250 metres against.
When he's crapping on, and then Rosie's just going to get the
Horn
ball
Francis
back in.
Horn Francis flogometer, I think may rival Jordan De Goey's this year. Mate, it might be right up there.
If Houston hadn't burnt me in the past, I might have given you some acknowledgement. But
boys,
Houston's role though and this is the thing, like he gets thrown around all over the place. He's never been able to settle in that distributor role because he gets thrown into the midfield as a tagger, then he gets thrown onto the wing, and then he gets thrown behind the ball. If he's the guy that's taking the kickouts and is leading the back line from that distributor position, he can easily average 105 plus.
You know what I just realised? Right, we've got an esteemed guest here, and then we've got like Kmart Bomps giving his outlandish opinions. It's like we're the triple podcast crew right now. Like it's flattering, and that's 2 drive-bys on SC Elites.
It's flattering. Thank you very much.
All right, so number 7 then. Damo, 7?
My number 7, I actually had this guy averaging about the same as what I thought Brayshaw would. I think he's going to have a bounce back year. I've got Jake Lloyd.
Oh,
wow.
Bounce back year. I like that.
I think he returns to his 107, maybe a little bit less than that average. I think he'll average about the same as what I have Brayshaw predicted to average.
That's crazy. I'm thinking that Lloyd is pretty much belongs in 1994, and that's his role. That's his role in Dumb and Dumber.
I'm gonna go get the wife, and she can sit in this because she's got Lloyd in her top 10. I don't know.
No.
Yes,
actually,
she does.
Bree, I love you, Bree.
Are you being facetious, Swizz?
No, I'm dead set.
What's she sitting in? Sit in this. Sit on this.
No, she's in the other room. I'm sure she can hear. Where I don't have him in my top 20. I think he just...
I don't think he was picking up what you're putting down there, Ben. But I was picking it up. Now,
can't see here,
sorry, I just had to quickly check, guys, because I like stats and I like to back up my points when people challenge me on them. Houston had 6 or 7 kickouts last week. 6 of the 7. So
you're talking about Jake Lloyd now, mate. Come on.
Yeah, I know.
I just want
Perth over here. Chris talking about the guy from 5 minutes ago.
I thought I was living in the past.
That's right.
I know. I can never move on without winning the argument. You see, so I just wanted to just put that out there.
Or if it's with it and you just can't move on.
Put it out there.
If it's with it and you just can't move on.
Look, Lloyd could do it. I feel like Sydney changed their game plan slightly last year, which has led to a lot of success. Blakey going to that back line has infinitely changed him with his run and carry. And I think that when earlier in the season, when he was tipped to not even make round one, I was like, oh, wow, like Lloyd is going to be a huge shout for a big bump early, because they will have to go through Lloyd, because they don't really have Braden Campbell's really not ready. They don't really have that other run and gun carry player off that half back line. They trialed Ollie Florent there, obviously, in the preseason. I'm not sure how that's going to go in the real games. Lloyd could do it. But Blake is obviously back now. He looked really, really fit and healthy. It's a flyer and underpriced. I mean, if he does that and you're on him, you're laughing. Have you thought about putting him in your team, Damo?
I've thought about it. I know Leckdog is a big fan of him. He hasn't come near my team yet, but when I was mapping out my top 10, he snuck his way in.
And then this is why I like these sort of top 10 things, because when you do map them out and you go, shit, there's a bit of value there. Like, there's a lot of value in Lloyd. Like, we've seen him obviously go 122 in the COVID year, didn't he? Like, that was only 2 years ago. And then when he won 107 last year or something, like, he went still. What did he end up going last year?
Like 89, wasn't it?
Last year he averaged 92.1.
Ooh, okay.
He had some big scores, but the last 6 games, I think there might have been a role change, because he dropped a couple of stinkers in those last few games.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Boys, developing my top 10 list is pretty much one of my top 3 things of sneaking in. So,
wow, you were on fire.
Oh,
how many have you had tonight, Ben?
None yet. I've had none yet. Oh, alcohol. I've had maybe. Number 7, Chris. Sorry, Damo.
Oh, sorry.
Normally it's puns. I've kind of broken out of that tonight.
You do. 7. So Bailey Dale, I've got at 7. What?
Go on.
No, I think he's actually of those. So there's 2 picks in that sort of 550, or 3 picks, I should say, in that 550K bracket that I like. Bailey Dale's one of them. It will depend on role, and that's really all it's going to be. So if he gets a primary kick-out taker role, Caleb Daniel moves into the midfield. They're not doing this funny thing where they share everything, because Bulldogs and Magneto and loving that. Then he could definitely go, I think, 106 to 108 in that sort of realm. I don't think he's like a 110 plus guy, but he's sort of in between that. I think he's definitely got the scope to do that. They like his use, but they've got Crozier now obviously back. He looks to be in fine form. They've got Richards, but is he going to be the one taking kickouts? Are they going to share them? Is he going to get majority? Is Caleb Daniel back there? Does he rotate back? I hate the Dogs, because every single one of their players has this amazing SC ability, and not one of them you can be like, that's what role they're going to play. I'm going to lock that in for this sort of average. But I don't mind Dale. He's one of the guys I've been looking at that sort of mid-tier bracket, between 500 and 600K. And yeah, I think he'd go a lot worse. So,
Swizz, do you have Lloyd or Dale?
I've got Bailey at 6. I'm on with Chris there. I actually think similar. He's the one that I think at the Dogs you do know kind of where his role is. Playing halfback flank. Ed Richards is the one that could pop up more over that wing.
Yeah.
Or Caleb Daniels playing ruck. Who knows with Bevo actually with all the other positions, but it's but he's the one I do trust. I think they love these, the way he uses the ball outside halfback. Excuse me for a second. Bont playing more midfield. I think that's a better target to hit up through the mids. Especially if English continues to develop and he's got that ruck target around the ground that he can kick to. Some of those kicks, I think, it's better. You're going to get long, effective kicks down the line, 40, 50 meters, which will help his scoring. So I don't think it's a huge increase from what he did last year, but it's enough to, put him in that conversation of top 6.
I have him at 7 as well, Chris, which is why my pause. And it's funny because we didn't actually converse on any of these top 10s. And the fact that three of us had, and Damo will give his shout in a second as to why he may have missed or been in. It's funny because I before this pod, I don't think I would have thought all three of us from SC Insider would have had Bailey Dale between 6th and 7th ranked overall, which is, outstanding for me. My reservations with Richards because he's one that might be able to take some run and dash through. That's my reservation. Caleb Daniel, I'm not as concerned with. I think because of Richards' development, they now don't need Daniel there. And Daniel was a junior midfielder, so I think he's always the size of a junior midfielder for life.
He's still playing under 16s.
So, but he's someone that I think could go the old
and
in and under.
They've got to use a replacement for Dunkley in the ruck, so I think it's going to be him.
Damo.
I've got him at 6.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're all pretty much in the same boat. Yep. Nice.
Wow.
Yeah, and look, so what we're all probably saying is if you're not looking at one of the 600K guys, you're probably looking at someone like a Bailey Dale in that realm, right? I see teams with Bailey Dale and I go, look, should I go there? It's not really enough value. Like for 50K more, you can get almost a certified guy. And I don't think anyone's really running super deep. But if this was another year where we had 4 or 5 options of the top guys around that 550K, I can see myself picking a Bailey Dale. It's just that the ceiling's so high in defense now. We're going, there's like a couple of guys that could go 110 plus, 115. Like, that's not normal. This is not how we've traditionally played Supercoach. 110 was maybe one guy. Like, I remember when Doherty went like 115 one year and everyone was like, oh my gosh, like there's the one guy out of the whole defense that's gone huge and everyone else has gone like 100. That's not the case now. So, yeah, definitely changed dynamics, that's for sure.
And he's got a pretty safe floor as well. Only 3 scores under 85 for the 2022 season.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, I like that. Very, very interesting. So that's 7. I think I've said my 6 is Sinclair. Damo, you just said he was 6. Swizz, it was also your 6 as well. Chris, do you have something different for 6?
6, yes, I do. And I don't know if any of you guys have this guy. So coming in at, I've got him averaging 108, by the way.
Coming.
Sorry.
You said
no,
coming.
Definitely not.
I did hear coming. I'm not coming in at. Sorry.
Coming in at 108. I actually have Jordan Ridley at this price point. So I really rate Jordan Ridley. And we had a
clearly don't rate him enough to wait until you hear where I've got him. Go on.
That's good. But me and Swizz had a big chat about Essendon and Jordan Ridley on a 2-hour podcast that we just ranted for. I haven't. It'll come to a cinema near you very shortly. But ultimately, the style of game that they're playing, the role that Ridley's playing, we've seen him go even 110 plus before, and I think that he could potentially do that again. I've just sort of cooled my reservations on exactly where I do see him going. I think 108 is a conservative estimate based on what I know his output could be. But you got to factor in as well the role he can cop knocks because he's an intercepting defender. Does he cop an injury? Does he get subbed? I don't know. I think 108 is conservative. And even though I do actually rate what I think on a weekly basis you could get out of him quite a bit higher. So, I love Jordan Ridley and he's my number 6.
He's number 5 for me. So I think he's gonna rebound. The one thing that worries me about him is, will their key defenders stay fit, or will he have to return to that lockdown role like he was doing in the later half of the beginning half of last season?
Well, they did recruit Montgomery though. Is it Montgomery?
That's their backup plan. The mature, I think.
That's their first backup plan.
Was it Kelly?
Because I've already got Jake Kelly.
But he's playing sort of that medium
one, and then Zerk Thatcher's your gorilla these days, which we'll use the term loosely.
You know what? Like Laverde, as undersized as he is for a true key position defender, has played fairly well in that role. So but I think the fact as well, like we were chatting on our pod the other day, Redmond is used much higher up the ground, and they're actually pushing him and McGrath right up to the contest on either side, almost as an extra mid in those when it's, say, on the half-forward flank or on the wing. Those half-backs are going right up to that contest to provide an extra number. And it's really it's awesome for Ridley, because then that just leaves him sort of one out as that one guy loose in defence. They're not having to rely on a Redmond or a McGrath, even though I think that both of those guys will average well without being crazy in this system. But yeah,
I've got
Damo.
I've got him there.
I knew there was a reason we got Damo on.
Yeah, it's good. I've got him there at 5 as well for everything we've talked about on that podcast.
Okay,
put it up and let people hear the 2-hour explanation.
I'm changing him to 5. I've got to be with the group.
Why I've got Ridley at 5, and if I could have put him higher,
me yet.
He's in my team. Lock him in. Love it. 500k.
Yep.
Perfect.
Come on, Ben. You haven't watched the preseason, have you?
Ben doesn't even in the top 10. What a shit bloke. Why are you hosting this?
Where is he, mate?
Where is he? Come on.
Is he?
Ridley, number 5.
Oh, I can't out of it. Really?
Number 5.
Good.
And Chris, you're like, oh, I've got him high. I'm like,
how do we have Dale and Ridley in the same scope? Very, very interesting.
Yeah,
So
and here's the thing. Ridley actually provides
starting?
value, right?
Yeah,
I've got him.
I'm starting Ridley.
Yeah.
Damo, in your team at the moment?
I'm trying to find a way to fit him in.
Who's your D1 and 2 then?
My D1 and 2 is, so I've got rated 1 and 2 in this list.
Yes,
Okay,
okay.
fair call. He's PR trained. He's PR trained. He knows it. He's PR trained. Don't disclose the goodies.
I like it.
All right, so that's then all the was it the 5s out of the way? Anyone
Actually,
got
I think
6
Ridley's my
left over?
D2, by the way, on that.
That's everyone's
he's on mine.
D5, yeah. D5, 6 done.
Yeah.
So we announced
so he was 6, but my I suppose you could flip him because I've got him averaging the same. Is Sard there as well? So you guys already talked about that. So I think we're up to Damo with his 5th selection.
4.
Number
5
4
was Ridley.
I've got Jordan Dawson.
Oh, okay.
They don't like the Adelaide people in Perth, I swear.
No, that's right.
They're too close to home.
It's an
They're on
odd
that
time
border.
difference.
Yeah.
They're on that border.
I mean, I think he'll get really close to the guys that I have above him. I just think that with his role potentially moving to a wing spot, there is a chance that he has some games where he suffers a little bit.
And he also will suffer from. I mean, I actually have him rated higher, and I will explain that. But there's a potential that because he's the captain, he's like, oh well, I've just got to sacrifice because I'm the captain, which we've seen happen before with other players where they're like
Callum
Mills. Well, I mean, he was he the captain last year? Is he the captain?
Five sacrificed his body.
5.
Sorry, Damo.
I think Parker was co-captain last year, wasn't he? And he went forward for the first 6 games to cover Papley. You know what I mean? We've seen these role changes because, okay, I'll step in and do that because I don't expect other guys to do it. I'm happy to go and sacrifice my role for something else. And I worry about that because of captaincy. But on the flip side of that, you also got to think, okay, this guy's been at the club 1 year and he's captain. And now he's got something to prove. So now it's not just, okay, well, I'm happy to sacrifice. No, I've got to prove that I'm the best player at this club. So I kind of see both sides of the coin with how that can roll out.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've been saying, Chris. And so I've got him at 2, and I nearly thought about putting him at 1. I think I've said it. Yeah, okay. So 2, and the debate for me was I hate the American term quarterback in AFL, but he is Adelaide's quarterback. Every ball is going to go through him, and if you're any Adelaide defender, you cannot leave that 50 without letting Dawson have a touch. I think that's the way it's going to be. It's he's plonking himself there, and it's not a fact of where we've talked about other captains where they've got to be unselfish. The fact that they've made him captain, and a lot of South Australians will be like, how can we make a guy when we've got guys like Dodie and other players that have been there for longer, not the captaincy? He's going to have to prove himself, and I think he's going to be involved in everything. Also, he kicks the ball so much too, so that obviously helps his scoring. I'm not even worried about him getting up around that wing or the midfield. I think that if that's the case, it's more because the ball's up the ground and he's, just plonking himself in positions where, he needs to, or he's running hard to get on, on chains and stuff. But I think everything's going through him.
I would like to see like how much he just absolutely pigs the kickouts because he's captain now. So he just goes, Get out of the goal square. Let's get out to my kick out.
Yeah.
I want the stat.
Anyone worried about round 6?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not starting him, and that's I suppose the other thing. So even though he's my number 1, I don't actually have him.
Yeah, I've taken him out, even though he's been in my side the entire preseason.
That's what I'm worried about. Are we jumping at shadows, or is the Hawthorn tag a real thing? Especially at Adelaide, it's like, well, you could tag Laird, but Laird's just still going to rack up and tackle you. So it's what's the point?
I'm not worried. I'm not even worried about that with Dawson. It's just the fact of the start for the other couple guys that I have in my list.
It's just too hot.
I think other people need to start them because how hot they're going to start. But I think as the season goes on, Dawson's going to out-average them.
All right.
I think over the season he averages more, but I think that there's a chance to pick him up slightly cheaper.
Where one of the other guys on the list is a must-start.
And not only at a good time, at the perfect upgrade season time. So if he gets tagged in round 6 and pumps out a 60 or a 70, and then by round 8 he's at the time when you need to get him, that is peak upgrade season. And so that's where I sort of see him. I also see someone like a Stewart. He's got round 4 and 6, I think. 4 and 6, he's got Sydney and Hawks, who have both tagged him in the past. So again, I see myself picking up both of those guys, maybe one round 7, one round 8, or one round 8, one round 9, or whatever, where they'll probably both be, I want to say, high 500s, But I do see the difference with, say, that, and I will get into some other guys of those 4, but I do have him at 1. I think over the season he still averages the most.
Yeah.
Adelaide have 5 of the first 6 at home, I think, or is it 4 of the first 5 and 5 of the first 7 or something around? Like, they have a ridiculous because they have that whole Adelaide round as well. So
that's why I was considered. Like, I still would like to get him in there.
I'd still like to
tag is a real thing though. It's
where do you have him, Benny?
Very painful. Dawson I have at second, same as you, Swizz. And I just think, again, if he pushes up, he's going to rack it up a little bit. And that's kind of not the quarterback, but, floating in from the side to get the intercepts and then getting the kick outs and just pretty much, really commanding that back line. He can intercept, he can mark. He's a great user by foot. And that just screams Supercoach, the high elite ball user.
I think the other thing of note is that when you get to these top 4 guys, are we splitting hairs with the points per game at this point? Are we like
splitting hairs between 3 of them? Not my 4th. I think my 4th slightly less.
It's not that much to be like, hey, if you're starting the guy that's 4th ranked, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be starting the guy that's, you know what I mean? Like, I think that at this point you're within a 2 or 3 points per game of each other. So I don't know. That's just my feel this season. What about Damo? You pretty much.
Yeah, my top 4 splitting hairs, to be honest. I think they'll all be pretty close to each other.
Chris, you can't afford many hairs to split, my man.
Come on. I haven't had a haircut in a while.
See, 1, 2, and 3, I could see nearly going the same average. I think my 4th, maybe only 2 or 3 points less than that.
Chris, who's your 4 then?
I do have him here. Hold on, let me pull it back up. Number 4, I have Tom Stewart, number 4.
Ooh.
So I actually have him averaging more than last year. I have him averaging.
Of course you do.
I do.
Because everyone goes up on Chris's scale that nobody loses points.
No, I just think that there's a slightly larger alliance with no Henry in the back of the 50 for the first little bit. So I've got him averaging, say, 112-ish. But he also had a concussion game last year. So wasn't he knocked out on 39 or something like that?
True average of 114.
Yeah, but that happens every year a couple of something points. Happens.
Yeah, and you can say that to everyone, but I think that
something happens to a Richmond player, Swizz.
Well, that's the other thing on that. Like, who does he take out this year? Taranto, Hopper, and that's the other thing. He's going to miss games and.
Wow, someone's really butthurt about.
I've brought that up on every podcast, I think.
That's right. He also hates Dangerfield in grand finals.
I love Dangerfield in grand finals. I've got no problem if he does it against Sydney.
Do you like Paddy Cripps and his elbows last year as well, or what?
You got a lot of respect for Fremantle. Like them, they've got no problems.
Where do you got Stewart, mate?
I've got Stewart at 3rd. He only plays 2 out of the first 10 games at GMHBA, and away from GMHBA, he doesn't average as much as he does at the Geelong ground. So I think his first half of the season will determine how well he averages for the whole year. But at the back end, he's going to pump out those massive scores because
huge upgrade target, right?
Because they've got lots of games in that back end. So I think he'll balance out throughout the season, but his early games will determine how much he averages for the season. And yeah, I'll be looking at him after his bye.
I have Stewart number 1 for the pure fact of that concussion game. He is the highest averaging defender. Pure facts and simple. He is also the highest averaging defender over a 48-month period. No, 24-month period. There you go. Or even let's just throw 4 years into it as well while we're at it. So for the last 2 years, he is averaging the highest out of any defender on any list. Now, Damo, funny you say that because that was why some of the arguments against starting him eventuated. And then we started to do some digging. He actually averages within a half a point similarly over the last, I think it was 2 or 3 seasons, Chris. I can't remember. 2 definitely. But he averages averages the exact same as the MCG. So when you bring out those first 11 rounds, 7 out of those 11 are MCG or GMHBA, which means that he's pretty much averaging the exact same at home as he is at the MCG.
It's just, but his away is real.
It's the tag.
His away sucks, and those 2, I think 2 of those games are against tags.
Yep.
So
and
I
with
think
the high ceiling and volatile to dropping a 50.
And the other thing is, so don't get me wrong, like you want to be on short when he goes big, but this caught me out last year, and I'll probably get done again this year in that he was just plodding along, going 105 average over the first 5 rounds. And I was like, well, I'm not going to pay $570K for a guy that might average me 105. I want a guy that's going to be going 120, which is why I jumped on with it and instead of Stewart. And then that week he goes 170. And that is the difference between Stewart and every other one of these defenders, is that he's obviously got the huge high ceiling. So timing that, it's almost impossible, right? Like I can understand why you'd start him because of you want to time it, but there's a method to the madness. He's also the one most likely to drop cash out of, I think, all of the top guys. He's the guy that probably doesn't hold 600K early unless he goes a huge game early, which spikes his cash flow and then he maintains. But with the magic number the way it is and the way that he scores compared to the other guys, I think that he's the one that is probably the most available around the upgrade season, which is why I've decided that. And similarly to you, Damo, that I don't think that it's sustainable for the entire year. It's more just that little bit lower. Again, still have him slightly higher than what I think he did last year, based on the injury game and based on X, Y, and Z. But I think he's the one that's most available. And because of that, he'll actually drop a little bit of cash. And he's also the one, in my opinion, that I would target more out of a tag than almost anyone. Because Geelong are the premiers. They're easily the best team in the league. How do you stop Geelong? Probably the number one way is to stop Tom Stewart, right?
Yeah.
Who are you tagging there
he still has a great average like at the MCG, but I do worry about some of those away games. Like that 91, I think, on the weekend in Queensland is about what he does away games. Like it's a vast majority between.
And he still played really well.
He still played well, but he just doesn't score that extra. If that's a home game, it's probably 120 points. The other thing that I think people need to take into account, Geelong's redevelopment's actually behind the timeline at the moment. So there has been some talk that, because obviously, especially I think the Sydney game where they're meant to unfurl the flag, they want to do that down Geelong. But maybe a couple of these other games that they're talking, I'm not too sure which of the big clubs are going down there, but do they get transferred to the MCG if they can't get the ground up and going at the time? So that's going to be a must watch as well, because if they've got games moved away from Geelong, well, then Stewart's obviously value does diminish a little bit.
In Geelong, though, who are you tagging outside of Stewart? There's literally no one.
Because they rotate everyone. It's like,
there's no point tagging a midfielder because they just keep rotating 100 people through there.
Yeah,
and then
so you just go Stewart.
There's no elite person that's going to damage you that much outside of the 15 minutes of danger.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
Except for that part. But otherwise, you go, hey, I'll just hit Stewart up. And if Danger gets off the leash, well, then you just try and clamp him. And he's the biggest issue. So I think, again, highest ceiling, but also probably the highest or lowest floor because he just does. He drops out these stinkers every now and then.
He could hurt us early because if he goes one of those massive games early, I don't think he does. But if he comes out and goes to 160, then it's like, oh shit.
Do it in round one when no one cares.
That's right. When literally no one cares.
So that leaves 2 players, I think, left because we've covered Dawson and Stewart, which is funny because you guys have pretty much flipped my top. They're my top 2, so you guys have obviously flipped the other 2. Damo, who have you got? What are we next for you? One of those 2, Doherty or Sicily. What have you got higher? As in, let's go higher. Who have you got higher? Let's flip it.
My number 1 is Sam Doherty.
Yeah, boy.
And reasoning?
I just think, regardless of Zach Williams missing, I think he could quite easily average similarly to what the top midfielders average. Because I think he gets enough distribution off halfback, enough time in the midfield, even with Walsh coming back, even with all those players coming back, that he will use the ball, be given the ball. He will be the guy that they look for out of the stoppage. He will get that opportunity to distribute the ball into the forward line when the game's in that free-flowing sort of state.
So are you saying 115 or are you saying like 128 or 120 plus? Are you saying more Took areas or parish areas or
115 to 115 plus?
Okay, so that's 130 for Chris.
No, I've got him about the same. I actually have him at 2. But here's the thing with Doherty that is underrated. He came in last year with 0 preseason and cancer treatment over the off-season and still dominated the entire year in multiple positions.
That first game he played, that was ridiculous how much he just towed us up. We were sitting there going, this is an absolutely unbelievable game of footy for a guy that with no preseason behind him.
Can we take a moment?
Are you going to
appreciate that, Chris? Can you appreciate that? The goal. I don't think I had so many goosebumps and hairs rising up on my body that weren't my own.
I clap.
And again, from a starting pick perspective, I mean, Richmond don't tag halfbacks especially, and they're not going to tag a midfielder. So either way, whatever he's playing, that's round 1. Now they have a rough round 2 where they've played Geelong, obviously. Actually, what am I even saying? They don't play round. Hold on, my club. I'm looking at the wrong thing. Do they play Geelong round 2?
Pretty sure they play Geelong round 2 because after that it really opens up. I'm sure that's the
that's right. Yeah, so Geelong round 2. But then they've got Giants, North, Adelaide, St Kilda, West Coast, all in a row. So if you're trying to upgrade to him, that's not going to happen. He might have priced you out by the time you want to try and upgrade. And then they have Brisbane and Dogs, obviously, which are a little bit harder. Collingwood, which again they're more like Richmond in the way that you can score against them. And then, so it's a little bit harder around the bye. Sydney, Melbourne, Essendon. But what I'm saying is from a starting selection perspective, you want to get on guys that are hot. Now, the reason why you do want to do that is because let's say they average 115 for the year, like we probably are all saying that he can probably do. If he's going to do that over the first 6 rounds, no, he's probably going to do 120, 125. And then people are going to be trading into him expecting a 125 average for the rest of the year, but he might only go 110 for the rest of the year. And they're so paying top dollar for a lower average. With that sort of run, you got to get on the run early. So that, for me, he's the number 1 pick in defense. He's my number 2 that I've got on the averaging because I do have Dawson slightly higher, but number 1 pick as to who I've got in my team is Sam Doherty.
Yeah, so I've got him at 3 overall. 3 overall.
But is he in your standard seed though? Is he your D1 in standard?
Yes.
Me too.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. It's 3rd overall, but for me, Stewart and Dawson I can pick up cheaper, right? And Doherty, even though he's 3rd highest overall for me, I think it just makes the most sense with the starting draw, and he's my D1 overall.
Yeah, I think he just slows.
So we're all starting Doherty at the moment?
Damo, starting?
Yep.
So pro pick.
And if you're not, you're going to fix it now? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Convince me.
He's there.
Yeah. No,
that doesn't convince me.
I just think there's other guys that
But he's actually he's D1 in spirit, but D2 in price.
I'm assuming that last one is the old Sicily.
Yes.
that we all have left. The last one that we should probably touch
Yeah.
on. 4. No, Ben.
How
not that
often
low.
are Hawthorn got to have that ball in that back line?
That's right.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah, Giat's going to tell up. He'll love it.
everyone's
Please.
talking about Jordan Dawson being the quarterback. I think James Sicily will be very good in that role as well.
He has to be because they've got no one else.
That's right. That's right. That's the only difference with, and I still got him over Dawson, but I think they're closer because Sicily, everyone looks at him as being selfish. I think he's got to try to be a little bit unselfish and bring some of his teammates in the game. But they are
like Giat.
awful. Like they are the wooden spoon at easy. Like some North supporters been talking to me, go, "We're loving you, Swiss, because okay, we kind of do want like this rebuild, but we're getting off the bottom because Hawthorn are awful." And it's by design. They've got rid of their senior guys. They want Harley Reid. They want to add Reid to Newcomb and Ward and McKenzie. And this is a 10-year build. This kid's going to be a jet. They're going to finish bottom of the ladder. Sicily is going to see so much ball in that back line, intercept marks. And the only issue, and I know Chris has brought this up before, last year they were a lot more competitive in games, and they're not going to be as competitive in games. They're going to get absolutely trounced. So where some of those games last year where, it might be a goal the difference or whatever, and then he can have a big 50, 60-point quarter by having intercept marks because the score's closer, those points aren't going to be weighted as much. But I still think the amount of ball that he's going to see is going to offset that.
Yeah, so as Swizz mentioned, there was a great stat last year that in losses he actually averaged 118, which is higher than his actual average. And in wins, he averaged a lot less. So that's crazy because I think most of us see them losing more games this year. But a lot of those losses, Hawks were very competitive last year. Now, they were competitive against Collingwood. Don't get me wrong, the first 5 minutes, I almost turned the game off. They were deplorable. I don't think they touched the ball in the first 5 minutes. Collingwood running over the top of them. And then I was like, wow, this is going to be the most boring preseason game of all time. Like, what is the point of me watching this? And then out of nowhere, they really just turned it up. Now, I know they can be... this is what I would... If I'm a Hawk supporter, what I would want to see is I want my team to always play to win, not lose. Now, if that's the case, they'll always be close, but I think that they're not being... It might be 2 goals behind. That's going to be great for Sicily. The 10-goal drubbings are not great for Sicily. The ball's going over his head through the goals and not into his hands. There's a big difference in terms of the way that they position up themselves up the field and pressure the ball at the ball carrier and allow dirty ball to come into the 50. That is different than clean exits, bang over his head or to a leading target and then bang a goal. So how competitive Hawthorn will be, even though in losses, will determine Sicily's outcome. I do have him at 3, only slightly below last year because of that. But I look, he's going to be a good pick. You can't go wrong with Sicily. Like, can you? There's no way. I think he's still probably... Okay, so 4, but what do you think he's averaging?
More than 5th. I still think he's a good pick, and I've toyed with it a little bit, but I guess it's just a little bit of that unknown now. Also captain as well, and I don't think Giat was that fit last year as well, so he might even do the captain role. He probably might get some CBAs, which will be good for him. I still like him as a pick, but when I'm splitting between those other guys, I just think I kind of know what I'm getting from Stuart Dawson and Doherty, and I think Sicily was kind of like this big, wildcat sort of thing last year where he just popped up and you're like, holy crap, right? And I'm just not sure if it's going to back it up in the same capacity. Or teams will let him set up in the same capacity.
For me, I didn't have him, not because I didn't think he would pop up. I knew if he had that role, that's what he was going. I was worried about him punching someone and giving away 350s in a game and getting the minus 30, which he just never actually did, and then bust the ACL on top of that. And then, he gets moved forward because they didn't have any forwards or something like that in that role. And if he now is captain, so he has to behave himself. All the the only worry now is if an injury comes up. But, he's the best player. He's the best intercept marker in the game.
Sicily and Toby Green, that's going to be funny. Now, imagine if they're both getting absolutely flogged. Like 0 and
they could
8.
play on
How
each
well
other.
behaved
They
could
could
you be
play on
if you're
each
like
other in that
0 and
game.
8? You just Sicily be getting so dirty. They're like 0 and 8. People are calling him Owen, and he's just seething. Just you wait.
Damo might like this one, but I saw the captain's photo today on Instagram. All the captains on Captain's Day, and I was like, "Who's that in the West Coast jersey?" I didn't realize. Do you guys know Liam Duggan is the captain of West Coast now?
No, he's not. He was sent because they've got Luke Shuey in cotton wool. They're trying.
Yeah.
They're trying to keep him.
Okay,
Trying to
I was
They
keep
weren't
him
allowed to
fresh.
fly, mate.
Trying to
Can't
keep
even
Shuey
fly him.
fresh.
Yeah.
I was like, when did I miss that?
No,
Things must
no.
travel slow up to Brisbane.
No,
Wow,
Jeez.
okay.
no, mate. He's that fragile. He can only play home. He's got the Josh Kennedys about him now. Kid, you do not
Mate,
leave that state, mate.
Don't trust Shuey. He had deep vein thrombosis, and he stopped playing percussion instruments and stopped bloody.
Mate,
like, right,
mate, if you'd beaten Collingwood in a grand final after the siren and that, you guys would still be
come
celebrating
on.
that 5 years
No, we
later
don't
as
need
well.
none of that. It was 4 years ago, almost 5.
Actually, Damo, as a Fremantle supporter, you're probably just as upset about that kick as Chris, I believe. Maybe not as upset as Chris.
I mean, it's just one of the like that premiership though. Over here got almost no fanfare. Like
really?
they
What?
like they
Well,
Is
beat
that
had
why
no
you got the
one.
keys
like
to the city?
they booked out a whole park to celebrate it, and only about 300 people turned up.
That's
And then they were doing a parade in the Perth CBD, and only about 200 people turned up. And then a week later, the trade period started, and no one cared that they won the premiership anymore.
Yes.
It's
They're
all
all at
deserved, really.
Yes.
All deserved.
they're all at Ben Cousins' house. That's the problem.
I'd like a good off season.
Hey, the best thing is
Did-
like bring your drinks, boys, because
Could
there's
you
enough
use your
ice here for
connections over
everyone.
there? Could you use your connections and get Dom Sheet on the show for us?
Oh no! Just because he's in Perth doesn't mean he knows all of the players.
Hey, if that was the case, I'd be having coffee with Dane Zorko every fucking week, Swizz.
That's classic Melbourne mentality. All right, so should we
I'll
run
walk
through
outside in a
our top
playoff
10?
spot, mate.
Run through all of our top 10 from 1 to 10 and start with Damo.
Number 1, Doherty, Sicily, Stewart, Dawson, Ridley, Dale, Lloyd, Brayshaw, Dacos, and Sard.
Nice. I have Dawson, Doherty, Sicily, Stewart, Sard, Ridley, Dale, Houston, Sinclair, and Dacos.
I've got Sicily, Dawson, Doherty, Stewart, Ridley, and then it's Bailey Dell, Sinclair, Dacos, Sard, and McGovern.
And I have Stewart, Dawson, Doherty, Sicily, Ridley, Sinclair, Bailey Dale, Sard, Witho, and Dacos to round out the tail. That wraps up our wonderful top 10. I'm surprised we were more in sync than anything, to be honest, which was very surprising. Let us know if you have any of those players in your standard side, anyone that you've snaked up in a draft league. Let Chris know how much Houston sucks. And I think that wraps us up, everyone. Obviously, all hail to Witherden. That's it, Damo. Thank you very much for joining us today. Really look forward to watching the Fremantle Dockers absolutely towel up. Any final words here? Any smokies? Is Henry actually a true thing, Damo?
No. Henry's a sub-risk.
Henry's a sub-risk.
Oh, you heard it here first.
Also a trade risk. What about Fife? Are you starting Fife?
After seeing Fife live at Fremantle Oval against Port Adelaide, I am finding it very hard not to start him.
No shoulder strapping. Probably going to kick 15 goals.
There's no strapping. He's had a full preseason. He looks... How he played in the midfield in his prime is how he's going to play in the forward line.
Very interesting. That shoulder strapping, I think, is very, very undersold. And especially with their soft draw, I think he's going to kick quite a lot of goals in that first run and be a nice little option. He's one I'm trying to definitely find in. That's it, Damo. Thank you very much for joining us. The defensive line, more in sync than I was expecting, but hey, that's what you get when you put a nice boy band together, is a bit of NSYNC. Chris Swizz, thank you again, and we'll talk to you soon, everyone. Catch you later.
See you guys.
Damo, you meant to say bye.
See ya.
Bye.
I-
Bye.